Hello and welcome to Cruisers Question Time number 2. Hello Jamie.
Hello Elizabeth.
Would you like to tell people about yourself?
My name is Jamie and I live on Esper. That's all we need to know. That's all we need to know.
So this is just a few questions for people to get to know Jamie a little better. Question number 1. Where would you like to be right now?
Back on the boat at anchor, somewhere on one of those little islands just out there.
Question number 2. What's your soundtrack when sailing?
Okay, so we both have a soundtrack, don't we, that that we share. But I'm going to give that one to you.
Thank you.
Because I thought of another one, and it's actually an entire mix by a DJ called Danny Tenaglia. And he did a mix for a series of house mixes called Global Underground back in the 90s. And the reason why I choose this is because it takes me back to Turkey when we went sailing with Emma, Katie and our 2 Turkish friends, Taç and Adil. There was one afternoon when we just sailed around the Turkish Aegean coast and we played this super loud. We don't often play music when we're sailing, we prefer the sound of the water, but that particular mix by Danny Tenaglia is definitely the soundtrack that I would play. And if I can't have that, it would have to be Rio by Duran Duran with Emma and Katie on the front of the boat.
I remember that afternoon because I was at the front asleep, suffering from a terrible hangover. So yeah, good music. Next question is, what do you miss most about home, not including friends and family?
Oh, it would have to be pubs. A country pub in the English summer, which I guess is kind of including family and friends, because I would be in this pub drinking an English ale with family and friends.
You can't have that.
Okay, well maybe I'm in the pub on my own, being the sad loser in the corner, but it's an English country pub garden.
Yeah. Yeah. You've stolen mine, so I'm going to have to think of something. Does travel broaden the mind or reinforce old prejudices?
Yeah, travel, meeting people, it's kind of same but different is what I always think, in that as we travel around, the people we meet, of which are many and varied, I find that pretty much everyone is the same ultimately. We all want the same things in life. We all want a roof over our heads, food on the table, some money, and it doesn't matter which country you come from, where you come from, everyone wants the same. However, if you spend long enough in a country and you scratch beneath the surface, you'll find that the cultural differences are huge, and I guess this is what travel does, is that it allows you that insight into different cultures, and that's when you find that we are actually quite different.
Yeah. What would your superpower be?
I know the obvious ones are flying and invisibility, aren't they?
Have one of those if you like.
Yeah, I mean, flying, it's an obvious one, but I love the idea of being able to fly. I can't really think of any others actually. Yeah, I'm going to go with flying.
Pretty good one. Jamie, what do you want to do when you grow up, or if you grow up?
To be a responsible adult. I'm halfway there.
Halfway, yeah. What's your favourite bit of kit on board Esper?
That would have to be my grandfather's binoculars. My grandfather, very sweet dear man, I had a lot in common with. He was very big into photography. In fact, he was a very good photographer. My childhood memories of him are taking photos of the family with his little light meter out in his notebook, and he'd record every single exposure. He landed on D-Day in Normandy, and he used to regale us as children with stories of how he was captured by the Nazis, and his appendix scar was actually bionics put in by Hitler himself. And he lived to be a great age as well. He died when I was 30, but my regret is that he never saw me after I went off travelling. The last time I saw him was the day I left to go travelling. He was living with Mum and Dad at the time, and I remember his last words to me, his very last words to me were, "Live every day as if it were your last," which I've done. So these binoculars, every time I pick them up, which is many times a day, all these thoughts go through my mind when I pick up those pair of binoculars, which is why I always get very angry when you put your grubby finger marks all over the lenses.
Yeah.
So yeah, Grandad's binoculars.
Yeah, they're great. If you could go back in time, where and when?
Well, I've just been reading, I've been dipping into a book that I dip into every now and then, which is about circumnavigators, and I'd like to get a little glimpse of what it must have been like on some of those large ships that left Europe to go around the world and discover those passages for the first time. I can't imagine life on them was particularly pleasant, but I imagine that life at sea then compared to life at sea now would be so hugely different that it would give you even more of a respect for the sea than what we have already.
Okay. We're coming towards the end, but we've got a few more. What's your favourite anchorage?
Okay, so there's a couple. There's Gümüşlük in Turkey. It's not a particularly safe anchorage. I think we dragged there one evening, didn't we? But that for me represented the beginnings of our adventures, and it's a beautiful little spot. And there was a restaurant with a huge fig tree run by a dear friend called Gökten, who's no longer with us. That's one spot, and well, we discovered another one the other week, didn't we? Koh Hai, the 5 islands with American and Alicia. Red Sea, there's a couple on Red Sea, Sadler Island.
You're supposed to choose one.
Oh God, it's too many, too many.
Okay. If Follow the Boat could grant you one wish, what would it be?
You mean apart from world peace and equality for all and education for all children? I think it would be consistent 20-knot winds coming across the beam of the boat so that we could sail everywhere rather than having to bloody motor. I mean, when we cross oceans, we tend to use trade winds, and so we do a lot of sailing when we cross big oceans, but when you're pootling around these anchorages here, the winds can't be guaranteed, and it's a little bit frustrating having to motor, so I'd want those consistent winds.
Yeah, I agree. So, just keying up the next one, which is, what's been the highlight of your sailing adventure so far?
Rescuing turtles. Was that going to be your one?
It's right up there.
Yeah. So this is something that all happened before we started recording our adventures, and it was actually one of the lowest points of our sailing career when we crossed over from the Maldives to Malaysia, and we had a terrible time, terrible storms. We had problems with the foresail, and in amongst dodging squalls we discovered 2 turtles caught up in a fishing net, and we rescued them, and it boosted our morale at a time that we needed it most. And we have no photographic evidence, we didn't film it, we were so caught up in the moment to rescue these poor little turtles, and we did.
Yeah, it was great. It really was great. Penultimate question. What is your favourite colour? If you're a Monty Python fan, that'll mean something to you. No, that's not the question.
Oh, right, okay.
The last question is, what next?
What next? Well, at the time of recording, we're in the boatyard again, so we're going to get out the boatyard. You've got to return to the UK, so I have to get the boat back up to Phuket for my return to the UK, and I'm not sure how I'm going to do it or who I'm going to do it with. I may even have to do it on my own, and the last time I sailed on my own was some years ago, so that's what's forefront of my mind at the moment, is working out how I'm going to get back up to Phuket.
Yeah, okay. Well, Jamie Furlong, thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.